Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm super excited to have my guest, Steven DeBonis, here today. And the reason why I'm excited is because it's not very often that I have an attorney in-house here. So thank you, Steven, so much for taking the time out of your day to come chat with us and hear your story. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege and an honor. Zoom is a beautiful thing. It allows us to connect, and I'm so glad that LinkedIn brought us together to make this happen. So.
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is a magical place these days. So I'm appreciative of you being here. So Steven, can you share with me and the audience where you're coming from? Where in the world are you coming from?
So not live from New York, but I am live from the closest major city would be Philadelphia. We are in Neshaminy, which is located in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Okay. All right. So on the East Coast. All right. We have got a lot of guests coming from the East Coast. I love it. So you guys are my people. I mean, I'm on the West Coast, but I tend to connect with those East Coasters. I love it. Okay, so let's go back in time, and I would love to hear your story on, we talk to a lot of legal nurses and we get the backstory of, where they grew up and kind of their schooling and what led them to where they are today. So if you could share that with us, I'm totally fascinated by an attorney's journey.
So there may or may may not be some photos of me in diapers running around with a gavel in my hand at a young age. My mother has it locked away somewhere, and I have my fingers crossed that the house burns down with her not in it, of course, and that is destroyed. But notwithstanding, it started early on. I was fortunate enough to have an uncle, John Cordisco, who took an interest in me being his nephew, but also to challenge me and always get better. The running joke of the family has been that I'm going to kick John out of his own firm. Here we are 35 years later, and I am at Cordisco and Sale on the leadership team, a trial attorney, and it looks like that might happen. But before I got here, I kind of fledged my own path. I went to undergraduate at Drew University. I played baseball there. I'm probably the shortest first baseman you'll ever see at 5'8" and 1/4. I'm shrinking now. But was athletic. We won the conference championship. Shout out to my good friend groomsman. And I'm actually the godfather of his daughter, Tom Murray. It's on YouTube. After there, I went to New York for a year, got to experience the New York environment, and then transferred, came back home for substantially cheaper tuition at Rutgers Camden, where I graduated from. Upon graduating from there, I started my legal career at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office in the criminal. I was an assistant district attorney. I worked my way up through the ranks and made it ultimately to the trial team. And when I finished there, I went to Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, where I also handled drug, sex abuse, and even homicide here and there. During that time, while I was in Philadelphia, I also went to Temple. So I am a Temple Owl as well, and I got my master's of law in trial advocacy. Being a prosecutor at heart, I do like to try those cases and be on my feet. It kills me in the PI world, which I am now. Happy to report 5 years in at Cordisco and Sale, part of the leadership team. We handle catastrophic injuries, sex assault cases, premise liability, and even mass torts. It's a different environment. And here I am now, 5 years in, learning something new every day, and just trying to absorb all I can from my uncle and from those people around me that I'm fortunate enough to help and talk with. And it's amazing what you learn every day. And that's kind of my summarized story of
Yeah.
where I'm going. So
Lots of twists and turns. I love that you're an athlete. I can appreciate those student athletes and then, successful student athletes. Did you have any aspirations to going, did you, I guess we all probably did as athletes, like maybe there's an opportunity for me to go further with this. Did you think that, or were you like, no, this is
it
just
was
what I do?
there's flashes in the pan where you have like a nice little hit streak and you hit the ball well and you're like, oh, I could maybe do this at the big time. But then you kind of come back down to earth when you realize, hey, this is Division III. It's for academics.
Yeah,
You want to be a lawyer, you want to be an attorney.
right.
I don't think you're tall enough, Steve, or anything else that it is. And you kind of see the writing on the wall, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
always nice to entertain the facade of possibly getting
Sure.
there. And I would be lying if I said I didn't at some point, but my family was always supportive of whatever I wanted to do. My
Yeah.
father coached me through all my years of baseball.
Right.
And he basically was like, listen, if you do, great, but have a secondary and have a
Right.
plan B because what is the percentage? I think it's less than
Oh
5% of
gosh.
people actually playing college, but even to get to the majors is even a step further
Oh
of
yeah.
how many people actually make it to the big time.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that about baseball only because I have a nephew. He's actually not, he's a cousin's nephew, a cousin's son, who I've watched through his whole journey. And he's playing, I think it's semi-pro ball, but he's bounced between team and injury, but he's living his dream. So I don't know if his aspirations were to be an attorney, but currently he's up in, I think, Montana playing and doing really well. And so, I'm always curious to see how far that goes for people, but I know that the percentage is so low. But it's nice to dream. It's nice to dream and to be able to play in college. I always thought that I played soccer in high school and I was like, I wish I would have played in college, but it wasn't my journey. So it's kind of just one of those little fun little added pieces to your story. So it makes you who you are too, which I love.
It's interesting because a lot of the people that I met through different times of my life from undergrad to law school, I still talk with a lot of them. A lot of them are in my fantasy football league. I'm from undergrad. A few of them were in my wedding. They came to my wedding.
Oh yeah.
I'm privileged enough and honored enough to be their godparent. It's
Mhm.
interesting how you kind of just pick up people as you go along and
Yeah.
carry them with you through life and the best worst times they're there and it's always that memories that you have and it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so in your travels, in your legal travels, is there something that stood out to you that was you're so grateful that you took on that role that you continue to kind of look back at as being something that was influential to where you're at today? Because I know you've practiced kind of, but you've had this little bit of a windy road. Is there anything that you go back and say, I use this particular role all the time in what I'm doing today?
I think a lot of it has to do with the time that I was in juvenile in Philadelphia. It was a juvenile dealing with any crimes that were against younger children or involved family. And especially with that, you learn and you develop a rapport with these victims. And that's something I always go back to because even with personal injury, you have to feel their story. You have to walk the walk. You have to talk the talk. Many times we're going to their houses, spending time with them, and just connecting with them on a larger level. I weigh heavily, and I always go back to that point in my life because as a 20 something year old, I say kid, you don't really understand the gravity and severity of sometimes the impact on these children's lives and the families. And if you're able to be solid force in their life where they have such inconsistencies and they don't trust and they've been harmed and hurt,
Hmm.
it gives them a little bright spot. It gives them a little hope in this dark world. And it's crazy because sometimes still to date, I recently, even people that we've helped at the firm, I'll get birthday cards, wedding invites, or like baptism. And it's
Yeah.
confirmation, not that you need validation in this job, but confirmation that you are doing God's work, or whoever you
Yep.
subscribe to, you're doing good work.
Mhm.
And it always is
Mhm.
nice to go back to like, hey, in the darkest point of this child's family's life, I was able to be a little spark plug to, hey, it's not all bad out there. There is some good. There is people that are going to listen to you. There are people that are going to talk to you, and they're going to show you the good in the world. And that even though you got the crappy end of the stick, keep pledging, keep fighting, and there's going to be people there that can help you. And that's always one that always comes back to me full circle.
Yeah.
Just obviously wanting to have children someday also makes you kind of grow up a little sooner and be like, hey, I can have some responsibility for a little one around here and make
Right.
sure that they contribute to the world. So that's definitely that part of my life from the district attorney's office
Yeah.
in Philadelphia is one that I visit often.
Yeah, one of those memories. And it makes you empathetic and compassionate for your clients now, which I think is a really great quality to have, because they are kind of at their most vulnerable. They're injured and they're vulnerable. And you can be that shining light, and what you experience with, the young kids really kind of maybe softens you up a little bit, and makes you empathetic to those that are in need. And you're not your stereotypical attorney that you see on Breaking Bad. No, I'm just saying. I've been watching Better Call Saul, so it's kind of top of mind. I love that's part of your story, and that's who helps make you who you are today. So tell me a little bit more about your current practice now. Where are you seeing most of these clients? Do they walk through the door? Do they find you on your firm's website? Like, what does that look like at your firm?
I would say a lot of it has to do with the reviews that we get. So we really strive, and we have KPIs, key performance indicators, for our team members that they need to acquire 2 reviews from clients or even individuals that were unable to help, but we still will send them to the referral network, or we'll send them to the local bar association if we're not able to fulfill the needs that they need at that particular moment. A lot of the traffic that we get is from SEO and our website. Our website generates a lot of leads in a sense because we're regularly blogging. We're talking about different topics. And nowadays, everybody just picks up their phone and they're typing away and they're Googling. And a lot of the times, because of how many offices we have in the Commonwealth and New Jersey, we're able to, fingers crossed, connect with that particular person. A lot
Mm,
of them come organically from them just looking for attorneys and then seeing our website, and then they see the information, they see the results that we have, but they're also, clients are wising up nowadays. It's not more so where they're just reading billboards and they're like, "Oh, I got in a crash. Let me ask Joe or Aunt Sally who they work with." Let's go with somebody we trust. It's not just a family
mhm.
thing anymore. They're reading the reviews. I do it. I am a person of
Yeah.
of habit where I'll go online if I'm going to check somewhere to eat or travel or vacation spot, and I'm going to read the reviews because people are honest. People pour their hearts into these reviews. And especially if you look at the reviews that we receive at all the locations, I'm knock on wood, I'm proud to say we haven't gotten less than a 5 star. And we have over hundreds of these that people aren't
Right.
just leaving 5 stars. They're actually commenting on them, and they're
Mm,
identifying our team members. And these team members
mhm.
are here through thick and thin. These team
Mhm.
members have been with us for years. There isn't a
Yeah.
turnover rate. So these are people who actually give a hoot, and that's a lot of things that we've instilled too that I think circle back. We have pillars and culture values at our firm that we identify and we preach. And
Mhm.
it really does bleed through to the clients that
Yeah.
find and it's a beautiful thing when the clients read the reviews and they see those and they connect with us. But a lot of those things, we're on a few commercials. It's 76ers and Eagles just because we are in the Commonwealth and they're big sports teams. But a
Mhm.
lot of the connection because of Zoom and how we
Mhm.
kind of transformed everything, we're able to service clients that have been harmed and seriously hurt all the way up in Pittsburgh. We had a house explosion there, and even in Lancaster. So
Mhm.
our origin and source is really much so from attorneys that trust us locally in Bucks and beyond, and
Mhm.
Northampton, Philadelphia County, all those counties we've reached out and we developed very similar to like how you and I met. LinkedIn, they're seeing the
Yeah.
post, they're seeing this and the scenario, the sincere nature of these individuals. They're seeing the empathy and the sympathy that they're not just putting a billboard up, crossing their fingers, and being a volume
Yeah.
mill. Many times happens. It's the TLC, the Crisco and Sailways, as we call
I love that too. And I'm sure that your culture in your firm, like you said, it carries through to your clients as well. I think culture at home makes a big difference that uh, it makes a big difference to your storefront,
it.
I mean, if your culture at home is poor, your storefront is not going to be very exciting to be around, and you would not be receiving those amazing reviews. And I always try to compare that to it's being in the operating room for me. It's a little different. There, our patients don't see us for very long. We're kind of the faceless nurses, but we present a very small storefront. And so if your day or your culture at home is poor, those 5 seconds you have with a patient is going to be poor. So it really makes a big difference with, how your daily life is and how you're going to be presenting yourself and really giving yourself to those clients. So I love the fact that you kind of have that whole picture. Okay. So since this is a legal nurse consulting podcast, and we just discussed this a little bit prior to clicking that record button, I love that you shared. I asked you the question um, just because it was probably a good question to ask you before we started. But do you know of legal nurse consulting, and do you use them? So I would love for you to share what you shared with me about your experience with legal nurse consulting and your knowledge of it, just so that we all know. It's kind of sometimes we come across attorneys that have no idea what legal nurse consulting is, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the reality of it. So I would love for you to hear, or for everyone to hear what you shared.
Fortunately for me, I do have some positive experiences with nurse consultant. Um, Many times I would describe them as the unsung, very similar to like paralegal and team members, the unsung hero. They're looking at medical records, establishing the pre-existing conditions, and they're doing the work to allow the attorneys and the team members to advocate. I never thought in a million years I would know as much medical legalese as I do now from conversations with nurse consultants that are very knowledgeable and more than happy to share that wealth. I do watch Grey's Anatomy, but that has not prepared me to the extent of information. I can
Mhm.
probably talk to a brain aneurysm a little bit more thanks to McDreamy, but a lot of the people have been more so helpful in a sense of the nurse consulting of taking those volumes and volumes of medical records and just simplifying them to allow an attorney and team members to advocate even better and more convincingly to the other side. The insurance company doesn't want to give anybody money, and they allow that while we're both in a uniform front. I can free my team up to investigate something else while these nurse consultants who are educated and very familiar with this terminology can almost dumb it down to its most simplest foundation of, hey, yeah, they did have pre-existing condition, but these headaches from the traumatic brain injury weren't as frequent. They weren't taking the tramadol or whatever medication that the particular at that moment they were taking it. But hey, look, there's an uptick in the milligrams that they were prescribed.
Mhm.
And these are subtle things that go a long way in establishing that it's not a pre-existing injury, because every insurance company, as I'm sure you know, wants to establish that
Mhm.
it was already pre-existing to deny the claim and to give no monies, rather than have a more illustrative and convincing and persuasive identifying. And it's almost like going, the way that I always like to describe it with nurse consultants is you guys are like the trainer in the corner for Rocky. So like I get done, I just did like a round with the insurance company. I come back and I'm thinking, I'm like, what else can I say? And you guys are hitting me with the summary points that I might have flagged, but you're giving me more concise language and conversation points to go
Mm-hmm.
back and really take control of this fight. I always like to say like, hey,
I love
well,
that.
it's like the Rocky movie. If he dies, he dies. Well, you guys are sending us in there with that information and wealth of knowledge. We're able to almost see the punches coming at us and duck them, figuratively speaking, and then attack back with the points that you provide. So
Right.
it's a beautiful art. When it works, and it's a good thing. So that nurse consultants have saved me many times, in a sense of just re-emphasizing. And I look at it, I'm like, am I insane? Does this make sense? And the nurse would
Mm-hmm.
say, "Yeah, it is, but this is more of a simplistic way to explain it." And half the battle is explaining it to and educating the adjuster
Yeah.
who doesn't have that medical experience that the nurse consultant does, or experienced attorneys.
Right, right. I love that. Can you be on my sales pitch team here? Because you basically really did sum up what it is that we do. I'm curious if you were to have a conversation with another attorney in another office, and they told you, um, I think we've got it. We can figure it out. We can figure out enough. What would you tell them on, I mean, you basically just said it, but what would you tell them on the value of, your investment in a legal nurse consultant versus their time spent on, what they have to do without us saying, your time is better spent doing other things than what we can do.
I would honestly probably tell them that at the end of the day, the money is well spent if you're having a person that you are able to communicate with and get that information. But it's almost like taking yourself and duplicating it. If the biggest thing I always say is, I wish I could multiply myself. That's what you're
Hmm.
doing, because the nurses, in the consultations, they're understanding more of the knowledge of like, hey, I'm giving the marching orders in a sense of like what I'm looking for. You're going to flag that, and you're going to flag even more. So why not spend time on something that is similar to that, but you can enhance it that much more. It's almost like when
Yeah.
you're sleeping, you're still working. It's almost like
Yeah.
having a little robot that's working and in tandem with a common approach. You are ultimately the attorney would be the general, but the troops and the marching all unison together towards that common goal. It'd be silly not. I will admit I always had apprehension. I was
Sure.
apprehensive of the consultation. But what is this actually? But when you actually sit down and you look at it and you say, okay, I have a deposition that's forthcoming. I did my medical index. I did
Mhm.
my review. This is what I think. Why wouldn't I
Mhm.
ask somebody else to check my work and enhance it to give me more
Mhm.
talking points and bullet points? They're not doing the job for you. It's not that you're being lazy.
Right.
You're just double checking your work. You're dotting your I's and you're crossing your T's, and it's time well spent. It's not like it's I always say there's good doctors, there's bad doctors, there's good lawyers, there's bad lawyers, there's good nurses, there's bad nurses. It's not like they're taking your PIP and they're running it
Yeah.
through Cairo and they're draining it and now you have nothing left. No,
Right.
their effective time is being used on that.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say though is as long as you're communicating and you have good channels of
Mhm.
communication and very clear directive of what you want, you don't get lost in the weeds. You're not going to
Yeah.
get that, oh, well, I could have done this myself. No, if you understand your case, it's not a it's not a shortcut to a medical summary. It's a
Mhm.
way to deeply and on another level understand your case and have those. Back in June, he was suffering XYZ of symptomology for traumatic brain injury. Well, while that did have a downtick in frequency, there was an uptick in behavioral and emotional and anxiety. Or
Mhm.
he had an uptick of ADHD, because I always like to give the dam analogy, where with a
Mhm.
TBI, if you have one concussion, you're more prone to more of them. And the reason is
Right.
because that dam is getting hit with that force and the mechanism of injury
Mhm.
that it's eventually going to break. And you're going to realize that flood of symptomology that's associated with it. So The short answer would be you would be foolish not to do it, especially if you understand your case. And it's almost
Right.
like a soundboard. It's also
Mhm.
another person that you can connect with on a higher level to discuss
Mhm.
those things. I've had very good conversations of substance with various nurse consultations and beyond on different topics of neuropsych, or ER, or how it was handled. And it's just confirmation and validation that you're not insane and that you are seeing what the colors say and that you are on the common path. But I also get the
Right.
pushback too. I welcome the pushback. Yeah, I see what you're talking about, but this one, Steve, is sometimes.
Mhm.
But also take a look at this. But what about this approach? There's three sides to every story, like I tell everyone, and
Yeah.
hearing that soundboard is valueless.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What I really loved is that you said that it's an enhancement. It's like, why wouldn't you want to make your case even better? Like you can present your case knowing what you know, but if you have just that little added, set of eyeballs that may find things that make sense to them that may not make sense to you, it can easily enhance it, both in the fact that you, like you said, you can avoid a punch, or you've got an extra tool in your toolbox. Because I know on my own experience, um, I have found those things where it was like, wait a minute, I didn't think about that, or I didn't see that, or it could be just one line that I don't know, we're trained to look for because we've been looking at charts for 27 years. um, that one line can not make or break your case, but can enhance it. So I love the use of that term, because I think it's like, why wouldn't you want to, make your case better for to end up with an even better result than you plan to. So you are definitely an advocate for us, and we appreciate that. Um, so as far as communicating, I know that I've had conversations with attorneys that have been burned, as they say, by legal nurse consultants, in that, they present their case and here are the medical records, and the legal nurse will say, hey, it'll take me about this long to go through these records. And then they come back and it's like 10 times that. Have you had any experiences with legal nurse consultants that you can say, um, I wish I would have communicated. I wish there was better communication in that sense, or any other sense, like an example of poor communication or lack of communication?
Thankfully, I can say that I don't think I have, and the reason, but I also think it has a lot to do with my personality. I'm very type A personality. Um, so unrelated but related. My father passed away unexpectedly. The
Mhm.
anniversary is going to be on Monday, 5 years.
Mm.
And since that point, because I was so young, I was not even 30 yet, I was in my 20s, losing a parent of that magnitude and going through that experience, you kind of learn about a lot about yourself, but how to communicate and how other people communicate as well. There's about a million things that we do with our team members for print points and scores, where I communicate in a concise way. I don't want the fluff. How are you doing? I hope your day is well. No, this is the information. Give it to me, the summary, and then we move on. Whereas some of the staff members and team members, or even with my conversations with nurse consultants, I had to learn the way that they received information and how they would like to be communicated with. Because each person doesn't have those same experiences in life and those variables that shape who they are and how you communicate. One adjuster, you might communicate A with, and you can scream and you can yell at them. And the other one, B, you talk more about their children and what they're doing on this weekend than the case itself. And they build a rapport with you and they like you and they just want to give you the money. So circling back, that has shaped me in a sense to how I communicate. I'm not one to really uh, hold the eight ball or kind of hold my cards close to my chest. Many times I lay them out. I say to the nurse, I said, "This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'd like to get it in. This is the pricing I feel comfortable with, or this is the time frame that I need." And I mean, I can even show you right here. Like I have like these are narratives that I have forthcoming. that are literally just, you can see the dates that are forth. So I'm following up, but there's also more so like a responsibility thing too. While you are hiring and you are consulting with somebody, you got to kind of own your own stuff too. You got to make sure that you're doing it in enough time. Yeah, there's those ones where it's just like an oh crap moment. They slip through. People are humans. Even attorneys are humans, and you might have to do a rush, but you can't let that emotion get in the way of the goal. And I find that collectively, when you communicate that and say, hey, these are my fears, this is my apprehension of dealing with this, you learn so much more and you actually benefit from it, the conversation, because if somebody doesn't know what your apprehension is or your previous experiences, how are they going to be able to fix that? They're not. They're just going to continue to deal in perpetuity with those emotions and negative thoughts that they're never going to be able to move forward or make new connections or trust a new person. And that's what it is at the end of the day. You have to trust to the people who you're working with, that they're not going to screw you over or they're going to leave you hanging. Many times the people that I talk with are just like very good friends of mine. So there's neurosurgeons, there's orthopedics, there's consultants who will be like, hey, how did your roof go on your house? Not even work related. And that's the people that I want to work with. That's the people that I want to be, because they're gonna cover my tush and I'm gonna cover theirs when push comes to shove. And they actually care about their work. They're not just clocking in, clocking out, and pushing paper, because that's what you don't want to avoid. You want to avoid people who are just pushing the paper and just trying to make a quick buck, because you're not going to get the work product's going to support. That's
I love that that you shared that. I think that at the end of the day, we're humans and that we have a transactional event happening, but that um, that we're humans and that having a human conversation is really what it comes down to. I know that one of my favorite attorneys that I work with, we have developed that like friendship, like, hey, I'm going on a trip, have fun, show me pictures, but it's also a professional job, and those are like, that's why I say he's one of my favorites, is because he's human and there is this human conversation. So when it comes to, I'm sure you've seen this quite a bit, especially on LinkedIn. Your inbox is probably in flooded with legal nurse consultants and comments and likes on your things, and that's because it feels like there are so many of us out there on LinkedIn. It's because we tend to find, I'm going to say this as someone that has just watched how it works. And I'm sure you watch how it works as well, but we tend to gravitate towards those that speak. So what would your advice be to those legal nurses out there in the old, there's someone I follow, he calls it Linky Land, out there in Linky Land. What would your advice be to not necessarily stand out to attorneys, but also stand out and not be that obnoxious, hey, it's me, another legal nurse in your inbox. What kind of advice would you say? It would be like, gosh, if only I could tell them this.
you might hear clicking, and the reason you're hearing clicking is because I'm actually going into my LinkedIn
Ah,
right now to see
your
how many I have.
inboxes.
So
Yeah.
I have about 5 right now, and but
Oh my
here's the
goodness.
thing.
Okay.
What I do, and it's a promise to just and how I was raised, is I always respond to them. If
Yeah.
I'm interested or I'm not interested, or if it's just a connection. Um, they're humans. There's a human on the other side of that computer that is trying to move forward, progress, and get better. I would always tell them to not stop what they're doing. I'm sure it works. Personally, I I'm more so looking at the substance of people that post. Like I usually will go on a like a little tangent and add a bunch of people, and then looking at the post and seeing what they're writing. And
Mhm.
some obviously invokes different emotion than others. There's people who talk about. I just read one, scholarships, that their firm is giving out scholarships. I like to kind of be the middle ground of personal life with connecting to the personal injury, because hey, at the end of the day, I want to reach people not for my own monetary benefit. I want to help people. I get validation. My love language. I've never thought I'd say this in 35 years, and I evidently it is a hot topic of discussion. Love language, that I love acts of servitude. And that's how I give my love language. And it seems weird to say, oh, an attorney's talking about love language, but it's really not, though. If you think about it, the core thing of what we do is help somebody in the crappiest point of their life. If I'm able to do that, I don't need a thank you from you. I tell everyone who always like, thank you so much. I say, thank me when we're done. And don't even thank me. Just make sure that you're going to keep fighting and see that next day and not give up and not deal with all the outside noise. But that's what I would tell these individuals who seek business and want to get better. At the end of the day, I wish I could use all of them. But that's the
Right, of
reality of it.
course.
We kind of find, we talked off air about this a little bit, is my father, God rest his soul, he would go find a restaurant, he would find a restaurant, and then we would go there every day. We would go there every Friday, and he would get the same veal. He would say, beat the hell out of it and make it as thin as possible. And we would just go and go and go and go until somebody wronged him there. And then we would go to another restaurant. And that's, and as much as I always like to say I'm very different from my father, I'm very similar in that regard. If somebody is going to build me up and I'm going to build them up and we're supportive and there's that mutual friendship, I'm going to go and move mountains to try to find a way
Right.
to work with them. I meet attorneys all the time through networking, and they have a Medicare or their Medicare or their family law. And it's amazing to me. And it's almost like there is a larger life outside of ours that
Mhm.
somebody will ask me, and it will interestingly enough connect with them. And my big thing with referrals is, if I don't know the person personally, or if I haven't met with them face to face via Zoom or had dinner or lunch with them or anything, I'm not inclined really to send them, because they don't really have a dog in the fight. Whereas if I meet them and I look them in the eye and I talk with them, I can develop that relationship that you talked about. Hey, I'm going on a trip. Hey, I'm doing this. Hey, we were talking when we were at dinner. Your wife, she was looking for that new job. Did she get it? And it's that kind of level that makes me want to work with people, and it makes me want to put my neck on the line with them, because I know that they're going to give me that same effort back. Especially in the referral world. The referral world, a lot of people say, "Hey, like I use this nurse consultant. You can use them too. What are your thoughts?" And I say, "I appreciate the recommendation, but have them reach out to me directly. I want to know who this person is. I want to know what makes them
Right.
tick. I You don't want to mix business with pleasure of life, as they say, but there is some mixing that has to occur
Yeah.
just to have that authentic feeling of, hey, we're in this together. When you send me that work product, it's not like you're going to check out. I have experts all the time who are like, hey, did that case settle? Like, what happened with that? And to me, that's like the biggest compliment is, hey, you
Yep.
believed in our work, but you also gave a hoot about it to
Oh,
follow up.
absolutely.
And
Mhm.
it speaks volumes. It's like that phone call on your birthday, say happy birthday, rather than the
Mhm.
easy text message, or call somebody on on
Mhm.
on Facebook and say happy birthday. It's the extra level. It's that handwritten
I
note.
love
It's
it.
the authenticity of it that goes and works
Yeah.
well. I would tell them, be that person. Be that person who, when they make contact with them, ask them about 5 things that they know about themselves. I mean, in this short conversation that we've had, baseball,
Yep.
Italian food, like send that to them with a note, a personalized note, because that's what
Mhm.
turns heads.
Yeah.
Not the cold calls, or hey, I have a meeting with Attorney DeBonis. No, you don't. We don't have a meeting. Just be real with me. Be a person, and I will be more than happy to respond to you. It's always those people. Like nothing is out of sight and out of mind.
Yeah.
You're a person, you're breathing, you're there, you deserve the
Yeah.
respect, you warrant the respect. And
Right.
the people who do that, they just jump to the top of the line in my world.
Right. Right. It's really just standing out and being visible, but in a way that you're human. It would be just like you having a conversation with your neighbor and talking about their son's graduation, right? So you're talking to your neighbor, but I think sometimes we, as people who are trying to sell ourselves to other people, we forget that and we just freeze up and we think you want to know all of the details of what I have to offer. And that's not the case. It is not the way to stand out. And I know, uh, I think this seems to be a theme that I tend to put out there, only because I've told myself this 1,000 times over the last 15 years and all of these amazing books behind me, is that, be brave in being yourself, right? You be brave in having that conversation, the human conversation with someone. If you notice that on LinkedIn, I know that, there are a lot of attorneys that don't post at all, right? But if there's something that you notice that, maybe you are from the same hometown, or, have a conversation about that, and not about what we have to offer, even though they may not even know what you have to offer, or
Yeah.
what legal nursing is. But I love that that's what you stand for, is really behind that human connection. There's no coincidence that you're on this podcast, because I think that seems to be a running theme with, in my life, and how I try to be. I mean, there are always things that I would love to improve. I would love to improve, getting better with sending, a handwritten card when I know I really want to send a handwritten card, but time gets away from me or whatever. Or even little podcast guest gifts. I have a whole pile of them sitting out here that are ready to go, because my intention is that I really want to make them feel special. But I'm human and things happen. So it's just doing your best at just being human and connecting with them on a human level. Am I right? Is that really kind of
The
it in a
one of the
nutshell?
most greatest things I was ever told was, it's everybody's first time at life. Don't be so hard on yourself.
I
That was like,
love that.
like, because you get,
Yeah.
because sometimes we're so impatient, and sometimes we're so quick to fly off the handle. And even with my mother, like, I love my mother to death, but all of our parents cause stressors. And once I heard that, I think I heard it about 2 years ago, my whole relationship and the way that I approach work, life, family, friends changed, because it's so true. It's so simple, but it's true. If you think about
Mhm.
it, it is everybody's first time in life.
Oh yeah.
Just cut them some slack. They're all learning. Our parents are
Yeah.
learning, you're learning, we're learning. And
Yeah.
like I tell everybody, just take a step forward every day, a little progress, and turn around, and you've already walked 5 miles. So
Yeah.
it's
I
interesting.
love that. Don't be so hard on yourself. That's fantastic. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so now we have advice on how to act on LinkedIn with our attorneys who influx their inboxes. And I actually hear that a lot now too. They'll joke about it on a podcast, or even on a post, because it is just the nature of, it's the nature of the beast. So my intention is for this podcast is really to share with those out there, and give them permission to be human, and give them a kind of an insight, because I think also part of it is that we don't really know what you attorneys are thinking, right? And we're nurses, so we naturally care about people, right? But we're not natural salesmen, so we really don't know what we don't know. And so I think that that's part of it. I think that we just do what we assume we should be doing. But there is also, I can tell you, there are so many, the person, like you said, each person is a human, right? The person behind that message is terrified to send that message,
Yeah.
because they don't know what they don't know what you want to hear. So I'm assuming this is what you want to
Yeah.
hear. So I'm going to send it, and it's terrifying as a nurse, because we care about people. And so I guess it's just a mystery of
It's a fear of
what
rejection too.
attorneys.
It goes into,
It's
like,
also fear of rejection. Yeah, absolutely.
but I
And
mean,
yeah,
everybody. I was another saying I always go with. It's always no unless you ask. So if you don't ask, how are you gonna know? Would
sure.
you want to drive
There's
yourself
no.
crazy and speculate that it could have, woulda, coulda, shoulda, or you just
Yeah,
want to ask and have a no? Okay, all right, great, okay.
yeah, yeah,
That goes
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. You won't regret that. You won't regret that, because at the end of the day too, you may just not get replies back, and that's okay. It's worth sending it. You never know. You may get a reply back that's a super kind person that realizes that you're human, and may say, hey, maybe next time just say hello.
I think the cool kids say ghosting. It's like being ghosted.
Yeah,
Is how it
it
is?
is. I think I have teenage daughters, so ghosting is, I think, a little older than. I think we've passed that. There might be a new name for that, but yes, we calling it, post and ghost, or
Posting.
sending your message and not hearing anything
That's a new one.
anything back. Post and ghost. A lot of people do that on social media, just post and ghost. Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing your insight on and really just kind of easing. It's all about us wanting permission to be like, are we doing it right? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Are we okay? Yes, permission. You've got permission to just be human and put yourself out there. There's this fear of, saying the wrong things out there on social media as well. Do you guys have the same fear as attorneys of, I say, not necessarily saying your opinions, giving your opinions or point of views, but I feel like there's this fear of putting yourself out there, and that's probably why we don't see a whole lot of attorneys sharing on social media. Is my assumption correct?
I believe so. Like what my big thing is we jumped into the social media sphere more so this last year, and I kind of took it by the horns and did LinkedIn, did YouTube. We had all that stuff, but we upticked our presence there. So I have no being familiar growing up with all these things. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll throw my hat in the ring, and it's more so of everybody's an expert of nothing. So when you
Yeah.
go on and you put yourself out there, you're almost basically opening yourself up for full demolition
Yep.
of the internet, call it trolls and everything else. If you
Mhm.
can get past that,
Mm.
and admittedly, it's not like I have any self image issues or anything of the sort, but for someone to take the time to negatively comment something or a video that you took the time to invest in and write, you always second guess. It's just human nature. Hey, did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? What constructive criticism could I get? It's actually funny now looking back. There was a YouTube video that I made, and we split it with something else, and it was overall welcomed. But this one person decided to troll it and said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to listen to legal advice from a 30-year-old with a receding hairline."
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so it was funny to me at the moment, but I went home and I was like, "Do I need to like get hair product now? Like what do I need to do?" But then
Yeah.
you snap back into it and you're like, I'm just doing what I can to make the world a better place. And
Right.
that person might be having a bad day, or
Mhm.
so I think I went on and I responded like, "Do you need a hug? Like, do you want a hug?" Like, because that's the only innocent thing of that I could say. And meanwhile, like my mom will bring it up nowadays, like now and then, like, "Hey, remember that one time you got bullied on the internet?" And I was like, "Yeah," but it's that's what
Yeah.
the expectation is. The exact expectation is once you post it and you get over that initial fear, there's secondary. There's that secondary embarrassment. There's that secondary fear. But
Sure.
once you kind of get through it, there's a lot of positivity out there. There are a lot of people that build up other people. Any chance I get, I'm liking a post or I'm commenting on it
Yeah.
because it might just be that one like or that one post that
Yeah.
gets that person to post again. And it's
Yeah.
it's it's a it's a beautiful place to
Right.
share information, the internet.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you got to fight back and you got to team up with
Yeah.
anybody and anybody who
Yeah.
has that same thought process for you.
Right.
So a lot of the attorneys just don't want to deal with that. They're like,
Mhm.
I deal with this stuff all day. I don't want to do it. And I kind
Yeah.
of just, my big thing is I like to kind of blink in the face of fear in a sense of like, hey, I lost something very special to me, my father. What could you possibly say and do to me that's going to make me
Sure.
upset?
Yeah.
So I kind of take it with a head-on approach in that,
Yeah.
and it's been beneficial. It's been kind of head down, out of sight, out of mind, just posting because
Right.
there's people out there that actually give a hoot about it. And we
Yeah.
receive messages like, "Hey, I really appreciate that. Hey, that
Yeah.
video made me laugh when I was in a
Yeah.
crappy spot." And it just reinforces the good that you're doing and putting out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would you say that it's been rewarding and worth putting yourself out there in the long run? Because I think also there might be this fear, not fear, but um, thinking that it's not needed. Why would I need to, as I don't know. This is just me assuming because I'm not an attorney, but why would I need to put myself out there on social media when I have other means to attract who I need to attract for my business, for my firm? Um, what kind of rewarding or positives have you seen out of being out there on social media, besides for obviously your clients seeing you and cheering you on, and obviously those that have reviewed you are obviously your biggest fans, um, but what other kind of rewarding experiences have you had, or or positives because you're out there on social media?
I think a lot of like the information that we put out there isn't like settlements and rewards. It's more of an
Yeah.
education standpoint. So
Yeah.
our education that we put out there, a lot of people have been like, I didn't know that. No one told me that. One example that is always on the top of my mind is the TBI stuff. Our firm goes as far
Mm,
as San Diego. We were at the Med webinar, the Med Jam with Traumatic Brain Injury, the Brain Institute,
yeah.
National Brain Institute,
Yeah.
and that was in San Diego in July of last year. And we learn all this information about traumatic brain injuries, symptomology, how to treat it, and all that stuff. And we share it because people aren't fortunate enough to be able to go and learn this stuff. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. So knowledge is power. But another one is the underinsured, uninsured. So motor
Mhm.
vehicle coverage, people don't insure themselves. And I don't know
Mhm.
why insurance companies don't want to encourage it, but people are severely hurt and they don't have means of recovery
Mhm.
when the tortfeasor is uninsured. So teaching this information, I stand on a soapbox and I just say, like, listen, if one person signs up for
Yeah.
uninsured, and God forbid something happens to them, they have coverage now because of a video that we made just to
Sure.
educate them. And
Yeah.
it does speak volumes. A lot of people are like, oh, I didn't know what UIM is. What's limited tort? What's verbal threshold? And because no one's taking it.
Right.
I mean, it's very similar. Like you learn through experience, and but for
Mhm.
someone taking your hand and being fortunate enough to learn that information, you don't. It's very similar to high school. My brother says it all the time. We should implement more like writing a check, writing a postcard, the simplest fundamental things to protect ourselves, but also be educated and be able to function in society. We're not taught sometimes until we have a vested parent, we have a vested mentor, or we have someone who gives a hoot about us to teach us that.
Right.
The videos and social media and the world it is now, those things
Yeah.
help people so much. So it's awesome
Yeah.
to kind of have that and be an impact positively on someone's life where
Yeah.
you can give them that information that they didn't know about. Oh, I can insure myself. I don't have to cross my fingers and hope this person has insurance. I can exhale when I drive and make sure
Right.
that my family and loved ones are safeguarded from a potential tortfeasor. It's a
Right.
beautiful thing to, even if it's one person. It's just like one
Yeah.
person, one
That's
time.
exactly. Yeah. That's I've actually heard that quite a bit this week. It's being impactful, obviously, which is something that you may not consider. Oh, what I'm going to put out there is not that valuable. Nobody needs to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. But if you take that approach that you just said, if one person hears it, then you've made an impact. So it was worth spending those 5 minutes of writing the post or sharing that information. So for you, it's impact, and maybe that'll give someone a little extra bravery to put themselves out there as well. Because I also feel the same way. It's and value, in my opinion, value can really be anything. I mean, sharing the uninsured motors, that specific word, those specific words of wisdom for that, but also sharing something that you just went through, your story about your father, and that is valuable as well. It may not be looked about on paper as, oh, nobody will care about that, that's not valuable, that's not a tip, that's not something that they can take and run with, but really it is. And so I think that um, anything is valuable if it impacts one person. So I love that. So it's really the impact that you've witnessed. So thank you for sharing that. I will tell you, I've had a really great time chatting with you, and I would love my community to support you. How can we support you? Where can we find you? And all of this will be in the show notes as well. But I want to make sure that, I have a really good community and they're all about lifting each other up. So where can we find you?
I mean, you can find us on LinkedIn, social media, Facebook. The website's cordiscosale.com, CORDISCOSAILE.com. We practice predominantly in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, but we have such roots and our contacts through LinkedIn and just sharing and vibing with people. If you ever have a question, give us a call and I'll be more than happy. You're actually going to talk to a real person, and I will probably hop on the phone too. Any questions you have, in a sense of just like, if you're ever hurt, what I tell people is I hope I never speak with you because it means that you're healthy, you're thriving. But if there is a dark part in your life and you do get hurt or somebody you love get hurt, give us a call. And we don't just pass the buck. If we can't help you, we're going to put you in hands of somebody that we trust as well. So the phone number is 215-642-2335. But any questions, I'm always down for a good chit chat and helping other people and pay it forward, because that's who we are here. That's who we are at Cordisco.
Yeah. Everyone wins that way. So I appreciate that. All right. And all of that information will be in the show notes. So make sure to reach out to Steven and say hello and ask any questions that you may have. He just opened the door for you. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here. I hope that this conversation was valuable and enjoyable. And I will see you out there on social media and stay connected and, support you as best I can.
Oh, thank you for your time. I look forward to connecting with you soon on some cases. And I again appreciate you letting me on here. And it was a pleasure. Time flew by. I didn't realize how quick things went by. But
it's always fun. It's always fun. I really enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at anna.gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.